Hi, I'm Dani Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of One-on-One. Today I'm joined by Steve Penna, who is the owner and publisher of the Spectrum magazine. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Print media used to be a vast and wide and wonderful world. It's shrinking by the minute as we know it. We're lucky in San Mateo County. We've got a few publications like the Spectrum magazine that are still in existence, but tell us what's happening in the world of print media.
Well, it's interesting because in the world of print media, I think you're seeing more around the country that daily publications are either going to 3 times a week or just completely moving online, which is very sad. And I think that they attribute it directly to advertising revenue, because whether you make it or not is directly tied to advertising revenue. But I think that if you have a publication that is true to what you're supposed to be doing and fulfilling your responsibilities as a journalist and as a media publication, you're going to put out a product that people want to read.
And therefore people want to advertise on.
Exactly. So I think that as a whole, I think our industry is lacking some credibility. I don't think we have that problem in San Mateo County. Print media is alive and well, and you can see that just by the amount of print media publications we have, not only dailies, but weeklies and monthlies. So it's pretty healthy here.
So there has been a lot of skepticism with whether or not print media still has remained in the bias sector, that it is in fact just reporting the facts. You know, I read articles in the Chronicle or even in the dailies or even in the weeklies that when I read them, I think, well, wow, that was really slanted, because I happen to know maybe the subject fairly well and know that there was another side to it. So has that sort of been a change? Do you sort of feel like that the publication sort of takes on what the editor and owner sort of political philosophy sort of takes on? You know, we always look at, you know, the Sun Times as one in Chicago. You know, I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's another reason why people don't want to pick up and read some publications. There has to be a clear line. When you're writing a story, you have to be unbiased. And if you're not, then you're not filling your responsibility as a journalist. Now, I have the pleasure of having a column. So I'm a columnist. That is my opinion.
Right.
So I have the freedom to voice my opinion like everybody does, and then if people don't like it, they can either call or they can write letters to the editor or what have you. But when you're writing a story, you have to remain fair and balanced. And it's odd to go from writing a column to writing a story.
Right.
Because I have to keep reminding myself when I'm writing just a story that I'm impartial and I'm giving all the facts, both sides.
Right.
And that's why when I write a story, whether it's for the Spectrum or other media publications that I have contracts with, I will send it to a friend of mine who works outside of the area in print media, and he goes over and he's like, you're fine here, you're fine there. This word should be changed because it could allude to you favoring something. So I think that's the balance and checks that we should all be going through every single day.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I've not sort of put myself in the shoes of a reporter, thinking, because I would have my own personal opinions about any subject, a housing project, and as a reporter, I really can't then influence my own personal feelings in those writings, right?
Right.
But I sort of feel like that happens more times than not. So is it the responsibility of the editor,
yes,
publisher, to sort of make sure that those things are not happening?
There's an editor, there's a publisher, there's sometimes managing editors, and they have control over that. You know, I've seen articles that are written, and you know that afterwards when you read the article that the headline was written by somebody else. You know, and it kind of like, whether you use a sensational headline or not, it's got to allude to what the story is.
Right. Right.
And a lot of times it doesn't.
So what is the future for print media?
Well, the future for print media in San Mateo County, I think is very healthy. I think the current concern that we should have for print media in San Mateo County is that you basically have one news organization that owns the San Mateo County Times, that owns the Redwood City Daily, and the San Jose Mercury. And so the writers and the stories intertwine with each publication. Now that should be a concern because let's say you do have somebody that slants stories, or you do have somebody that isn't professional enough to be objective, you can control the mindset of your readership on a whole larger scale.
Right.
More so than you could like the Spectrum magazine where we're focused just on Redwood City. That's going to affect that, but you can affect votes, you can affect policy, you can affect whatever, and that's a great
it could be a positive tool,
to
but it
have.
could also be a negative.
Yes,
I mean, it could
exactly.
be a real
Exactly.
scary tool as well.
But in San Mateo County, I mean, you have the San Mateo Daily Journal, which is very strong. They're from San Mateo. They're popular basically San Mateo through South San Francisco. They're very strong there. Then you have the Daily Post, which is publication is in Palo Alto and then feeds into San Mateo
And
County.
they're owned by different organizations.
Correct.
Okay. Or different
and so they're
individuals.
really strong there. And then the niche that we found in Redwood City was we write only about Redwood City news and people.
Right.
So having that niche, I think that's why we're so popular, is because people pick that up and they know it's all about Redwood City. It's about information you cannot get online. Therefore, people pick it up.
Right. And I think, those of us in San Mateo County who remember the San Mateo County Times way back when, we always say that there's sort of this gap because the Chronicle
Right.
doesn't necessarily want to pick up news stories that are happening in San Mateo County. So we sort of feel like there's this gap, and the way we fill that gap is through all these different weeklies. So I sort of have to pick up 6 different publications
Correct.
to find out, what's happening in San Mateo County in general.
Yeah.
And I know you in the Spectrum magazine, while you focus on Redwood City, you do try and have a county perspective as well. So
Yeah.
how does this Redwood City issue feature from a regional standpoint?
Right.
I mean, how does it have impact regionally and vice versa? But so, I mean, what can we do to either foster, support print media? I believe that it's one of our communication components that we have to keep alive in our communities. What can we do?
Well, obviously you can pick up and read, but you can also, if you're passionate about having that product, if you have a favorite restaurant you go to, if you have a favorite gym you work out at, a business you go to, you can say, hey, why aren't you advertising in this publication? Well, because that's a way to support and get community news out there.
Well, and conversely, if you do see an ad in one of the publications, say,
Yeah.
you know what, I saw the ad in this publication and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, not only that, but you get a 2-for-1 coupon for dinner in these times. You're going to clip that up and you're going to go.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. The other thing that I know that I used to use my local newspaper for quite often was the job section and then
Right.
also the car sales section.
Right.
And those 2 things have completely gone in a different direction with internet capabilities
Exactly.
and their own auto sale publications. And real estate was also another one that we always looked at in our newspapers. So those things have sort of taken on their own legs now. So what's left in our newspapers?
Those components are still there, and they are pretty healthy in the dailies.
Okay.
And it's more or less you have to match your pricing. You have to make sure that you're not gouging the consumer like you used to before.
Okay.
And have a more variety. I think that you're looking for more of local, like restaurants opening, restaurants wanting to keep in business, informing people of events and activities. Real estate is still pretty successful in print media because people like to see their properties being listed in
Right.
local publications.
Right.
They want to know that their agent is working for them.
Right.
So therefore they want to put print media.
Right. How do people get the Spectrum magazine and or any of the dailies anymore?
It's newspaper racks along El Camino. Everyone tries to put it in transit areas like bus stations, train
Public
stations, all along city halls, those type of things.
Anybody delivering the newspaper to your front doorstep anymore?
The Examiner does.
Okay.
Whether you want it or not.
Okay, got it. Well, thanks so much, Steve, for enlightening us on print media. It's something that I think communities are enriched by having. So thank you so much for your commitment to the Spectrum magazine and bringing it to Redwood City and San Mateo County.
Sure.
And we'll see all of you next time on One on One.